Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Her Way. Today I have a very exciting guest with me. Her name is Jo Wendberg, and we are going to be talking all things ADHD appearing on TV, by the way, which is super exciting. I'm not sure if you know, but this wonderful guest is from Vanderpump Rules. She was on the last season, and we just happened to click from straight away. She reached out, and I really was so excited to have her on with me because I've been a huge fan of Vanderpump Rules. I have a bit of guilty pleasure of reality TV, and that just happens to be one. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. I was also a massive fan of yours, so it's nice to do this together.
Yeah, thank you so much. So tell us a bit more about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
I am a hairstylist in Los Angeles. I'm also a dog mom, and I'm also a person who got broken up on television, and I'm also a person that has expansive ADHD, neurodivergence, and I've got a godchild, I'm a godmother, and I'm also a now new, I guess you would call me an aunt. So I'm very content with being with family whenever I can be, between Los Angeles and Wisconsin.
Amazing. Congratulations. That's so sweet.
Yes, thank you.
I love kids myself. As a mum of two, I can, relate to being around kitties, and I'm glad that you can be the fun aunt.
I'm going to steal it from you.
That's
font.
the font.
Love it.
All right. So how did your ADHD symptoms manifest while filming in such a high pressure show like Vanderpump Rules? I'm really curious.
Okay. So what viewers saw was honestly just me being myself. The producers did an amazing job capturing my authentic personality and also making sure that I wasn't playing anything up for the cameras. I wasn't. My ADHD brain naturally, jumps between topics, notices everything surrounding me, including squirrels. And I just get genuinely excited about things. And so when I was filming the show, it was, it wasn't really that, I felt good.
Yep. Yeah. And it's has so much variety. I can imagine that an ADHD brain in a way would thrive in that kind of environment where it does have probably a lot of dopamine. There's quick set changes, there's a lot of things about the TV world that is very fast paced and does mean that you have to be on your best game. And there's quite often a bit of chaos, which there certainly showed to be. So I can imagine there was perhaps a bit what the ADHD brain, that interest-based brain, is quite addicted to.
Yeah. And the other crazy section of the show was the misconceptions about ADHD. I will say that there were definitely very different dynamics in terms of misconceptions of the cast right. Does that make sense? They were looking at me a little bit differently because I was a little bit, for example, the viewers and the castmates, it was during the show, it was pretty intense. The dynamics were interesting because, for one, Katie seemed to take issue with everything I had done. And regardless of my intentions, to her, my ADHD behaviors weren't just different. They were somehow somewhat wrong or evil. And she didn't really take the time to understand the fact that my brain works differently, just not maliciously, right? The other castmates were generally much nicer and more accepting, and they didn't really make a big deal about what I needed to do or adjust or move like I just did. I'm putting my baseball cap down over my head when I got to a place of overwhelming, and most of them took the time to understand what might look like too much energy. But that was just my natural state. And I guess the biggest misconception was viewers watching me and thinking that I had, some type of crackhead energy. And that really didn't bode well for me in terms of,
I can imagine that would have been hurtful to hear those kind of things.
Yeah. Interpreting the worst thing and seeing that and then immediately jumping to a crackhead label was so weird to do that. I don't want people to interpret me as somebody that's not my authentic self.
Yeah.
So it was very alarming.
Yeah. And what do you believe would have been some of the reasons why someone may interpret that? I mean, it's probably a very wild accusation as it is, but is there something about that high energy and just being maybe someone who's quite direct and potentially has come across a bit confrontational, but more in the fact of just not wanting to beat around the bush. Like, I do think that neurodivergent people, and I'm glad you mentioned that phrase, because I know that was something that we've talked about and you've since adopted, which I'm so proud of you. But
Thank you. Thanks to you.
but yeah, I can only imagine that a lot of these traits that are the more perhaps hyperactive impulsive traits that women may have are often called things like bitchy. That we are perceived perhaps wrongly when we are quite assertive and direct. We're immediately perceived as someone who is too over the top, or it's not very polite. That I can imagine would have perhaps could have been perceived wrong, or that society isn't a big fan of.
Well, I will absolutely say that you nailed that, by the way, because at the end of the day, like, this is just my brain's natural state, right? So, like, with ADHD and the way that my dopamine works, and I know that, I genuinely just get excited about things. And I might seem like a small, minute thing for other people, but for me, my attention shifts aren't artificial, like, they're genuine. So, when you see on the show, that's literally how my brain is processing how I'm navigating situations, whether or not you call me a bitch or you call me something else. When my authentic self gets exaggerated, it makes me have a place where I feel uncomfortable. I just wish that more people would understand, like, the fact that, I don't know, neurodivergent people exist naturally in the world with different energy levels and processing styles. So it's, like, disappointing to me that so many people in this world, their first assumption of us, I don't want to say us, but, like, when seeing somebody with an ADHD trait, they immediately go to, like, she's a bitch or she's got substance abuse or something like that. When in reality, they don't recognize the neurological differences. Like, it's just how I process a situation. It's just how I
And want to
process
express
the group
yourself. Yeah,
setting.
that's right.
That's how I'm going to express myself. And it might be a little bit too loud or it might be a little bit too quiet, but it's just the way that my brain processes information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there can be some that unmasked version, perhaps, or that authentic version is something that you feel most comfortable with. And when you're kind of being
Yes.
asked almost to really mask heavily, that can be really dysregulating for a person.
Yeah, I just really wish that people would just absolutely, like, just try to learn to understand it, because everyone processes things differently. So there's that. And then you have to have a platform to really express important conversations about things that you really care about. And that's why I reach out to you, because I really wanted to be proud about this and not pretend
Yeah.
to be someone I'm not on camera. And even when it would have been easier to mask my ADHD traits, I was able to just go in there and genuinely be my unique self. And places like this where I can talk about having these conversations open and honestly. Listen, it's not easy to be on a I don't want to keep saying platform, but on television and also have ADHD. But when you have a situation that is presented to you, you're going to engage in things differently. See, I'm already going on a tangent. Like, I'm already like,
That's fine. But do you feel also that in terms of the editing process, like a reality TV, is there potential for that misrepresentation of your ADHD as well?
what I will say is that when I was on Vanderpump Rules, the thing I appreciated the most about was how they actually encouraged me to be completely myself. And they didn't silence me, they didn't tone down my energy. I'm not sure if that's a pro or a con, you know. But they didn't hide my brain. They let my brain naturally kind of manifest through the whole situation.
Yeah.
And they created a space where I could be like a real refreshing, authentic person. What was frustrating for me is that viewers were misinterpreting the authenticity of, like, where I was coming from. And also, like, it's so ironic that if I was going to really mask my ADHD and present a more neurotypical version of myself, I would have actually been playing a character. Like, it would have been so weird. It would have been like, I wouldn't have known, like, where my elbow would go. I think that the producers really valued and respected the stereotypes of ADHD, and I think that they showcased that. And I was very upset with the responses from the viewers, because it was just insane.
Yeah, I can hear a bit of that frustration that you were encouraged to be yourself, and that you felt that that's exactly what you did, and you were hopeful that people would appreciate you for you, but it got a lot of
Yes.
backlash, unfortunately. I know we had mentioned this off air as well. We'd spoken about the RSD, the rejection sensitive dysphoria, which does sound like that's something you struggle with as well quite a bit. Is that what you feel has really exacerbated this?
Totally. I mean, I think that the crackhead energy situation where it was just like the consistent like labeling and like consistently being called these names, like it was almost like they were exaggerating my qualities. And so when I would fall asleep at night and put my head on my pillow, I just felt like no one was in this world able to either match my energy or able to understand it. And so when it came down to it, I was really disappointed from the viewers mostly.
Mm.
The people in the cast, besides Katie, were really, really, they just kind of picked up on it and they were like, yeah, you're unique, unique.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really want to talk about that though.
Yes, so yeah, for those listening who may not have heard my previous episode, when I referred to RSD, it's that intense emotional reaction that can be perceived or actual rejection and criticism or failure. And it's really, really common in ADHDers and neurodivergent people, autistic ADHDers. And it can really be that deep feeling of shame and embarrassment, or just really heightened distress. It's really closely linked with emotional dysregulation, which is another thing that a lot of us struggle with. So I could only imagine for you that it may have led to a lot more avoidance, a lot more people pleasing, or like kind of really feeling emotional about this by the sounds. And it is really it
Yeah.
is really hard for us to be able to process that. And we get this emotional whiplash effect of like, oh my God, it sounded like it just came from all angles and it was pretty relentless. So how did you deal with that? Like, how did you come out of that?
I think that I'm still coming out of it. But I want to go back to what you just said because it's like can you say that one more time? What was it?
RSD, the rejection sensitive
That's my
dysphoria.
girl. Yes. Yes. Okay. Like I felt so ashamed about like, oh my goodness gracious. Like I feel like I'm coming off as a genuine person. I thought that I was being
Mm, mm,
totally fine. And then I felt like this is just how my brain processes and everything should be okay. And there's something to be said about being on television, especially in a reality television show, where your authentic self only shines when you actually are consistently yourself. So if you watch me on Vanderpump Rules, I am always myself.
mm,
Okay, cameras can't make up lies. So let's just say that's number one. Number two is when people come back at you and think about, oh my goodness gracious, they captured yourself being a crazy wild person. Like at the end of the day, we all have a world of different energy levels. And so when it came down to filming the show, I'm going to get to my point. When it came down to filming the show, my dynamic was very, very much I'm just cameras are here, great, whatever. But for the thank you. That was almost a thing that kind of came back like the sunset. I went to bed and I was like,
mm, mm-hmm,
oh my gosh, I just exposed my true natural self to everybody in the whole entire world. Oh my
mm,
goodness gracious. Oh my gosh. And then everybody else in the show was like, there's going to be assumptions, there's going to be backlash, there's going to be all these things, but these people on the show already had been so, what's the word? I call it boundarified, where
they were quite accustomed to that environment, so they had built up this pretty thick skin, I think.
yes, and I had seen that from the back. I had seen them from the behind the scenes,
Mm,
but it was a very different style of how people live and how people kind of I think that I was very much trying to be proud of. I think that what I really was confused about is the fact that the background conversations and things like that, whether the cameras are up or not, you always want to make sure that you're capturing your authentic self. And at the end of the day, that's what I was doing. Whether or not it was me crying all the time, being weird, being whatever. These people are seasoned. When you're that way, I go home and I think about the weird things that people say about me. And I don't know. It's like, I just want to say this. Like, my advice to the neurodivergent and beautiful people out there that don't have to be on international television is let them call you crazy while you're busy being authentically you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And their limited understanding is not your problem. Like, they are just not gonna get, and you might just not be somebody's best friend sometimes,
Yeah.
you know?
Or
And
their cup of tea at all. Yep.
oh, not their cup of tea. Ah, yes! I love that.
Yes. That's a phrase we use a lot. So,
I like that. And you might just not become someone's first time seeing
mm-hmm.
themselves represented on screen. Worth it? I think it's worth it. I think it was really worth it for me to be on screen and talk about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm still gonna walk into furniture and be totally distracted by a butterfly. You know, there's just a hem and a haw of all things. That's what's like. But I mean, I forgot what your question
That's
was.
all right.
You asked the best
I love where
questions.
you just went in terms of what you did get out of it and that you would do it again. So what were the aspects of your ADHD that actually you feel benefited you in the reality TV environment?
I think the things. My earring just fell off. One
I
second.
swear that happens
There she
all the
is.
time.
And it also happened at the reunion.
Yeah, I know. That's why I mean, like, these earrings.
Oh my gosh. Think the aspects that help. Honestly, I think the aspects of my ADHD kind of made me stay very present filming a reality TV show. Because you were engaging in long filming days. I think that the producers always noticed like the interesting things that were happening, and they were very, very much aware of the fact that like my brain was working in like the present time. You know, I wasn't creating drama, but I was always just kind of in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think that the producers never tried to exploit my
Yeah.
neurodivergence. They just simply let me be myself, and they recognized the value in showing different types of personalities and processing styles, and they genuinely were okay with me.
What I got from when you first started answering about the long days and how you could really remain in it and be present, it sounded very much like hyper focusing, which we're very good at. Once you're in the zone, you're like, okay, I've got a job. And, you know, if you're really excited by it and really involved, our brain just has this special ability of just tuning other things out and just be present.
It was like, I remember like there were moments where there was like the hardest parts of just piggybacking off what you were saying. Like there were so many hard parts where I was like internalizing and thinking, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me for this. People are going to think that I'm just like all these things. But at the end of the day, I was like, oh my gosh, I got this.
Mm,
Like it wasn't even like hard. It was like when we were filming, it was just, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like not everyone can process 17 different things, but I can.
yeah, that's right. That ability to just take in a lot of different information and really bounce off that energy. And that probably because you work on such a fast speed, you're like, bam, bam, bam. Yeah, I can take it all in. And I mean, it does come at a cost afterwards. Like we do get drained by that, but we are able to, you know, maybe impulsively jump into these situations, just to make the best of something and not think about it too much. I think other typical people may go, oh, that sounds too scary, or I need to have a good think about applying for something like this, or even going into scenes and just really overthinking it. Whereas maybe you impulsively perhaps just kind of went, yep, I'll just step in, I'll just do it, and I'll just be myself. Probably not really overthinking
Yeah,
it
because
always.
it's like, yes, exactly. Because it was like I was just being transparent about my journey. What you just said, it's like it actually resulted in countless people saying, like, thank you so much for representing and being proud and brave enough to be on TV to represent neurodivergence and also ADHD, and also just let them call you crazy. Yeah, I got ripped apart. I get it. But in our brains, it will hurt sometimes.
Mm.
I don't even know how to prepare myself to even when I was pull my
You
baseball
wouldn't
cap.
be organized enough probably to even be like
No,
acting.
no,
That's right. To have a script as if you'd remember a script anyway. You would have just been off guard.
there's no way I would even remember it. I'm truly and honestly just trying to figure out life just like everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to be the busybody, you know, person on a very, very big reality TV show. The way that my brain processes information is so different than other
Mm.
people, bottom line. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, it makes for much more interesting TV as well, in my opinion, as long as it like doesn't get exploited, which didn't sound like it. It was more the backlash and how it all came about, which was really unfortunate. But in terms of
Yeah.
your relationship with your ADHD diagnosis, how do you feel that's really evolved since appearing on television? Like it sounded like you had both a really hard time with self-acceptance perhaps as a result of what was going
Massive.
on, but it sounds like since then you've had to really do some good reflection just to really back yourself, and it's something that you didn't receive so much from others.
I feel proud. Thank you for saying that. I feel proud about that. I also know that being ripped apart is a hard thing to do. Understanding and laughter and like this kind of situation where I can be able to like harness awareness
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
with you.
mm-hmm.
And I just want to give people like I think the biggest thing for me is like just giving advice to other humans that are potentially relating, because I've been getting a lot of DMs and a lot of emails. I just think that when I stepped into the Vanderpump Rules situation, I was prepared for viewers who had never met me to diagnose me with everything under the sun on their couches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they jump to she's crazy, she's the worst. But this is the funniest thing I want to say to everybody who is neurodivergent, whether they're on television or not on television, and they're getting comments on things that are, we all look at comments, but they're going to give you some nasty comments. They're going to bring you down. And I want you to know that you're genuinely unique and valuable. And also, not everyone can process 17 different background conversations while also noticing that someone's earring doesn't match their necklace.
Yes.
And remembering that weird thing that they said 3 days ago. Like, we are so specifically important to this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the laughter, the humor, and also, back to your question, I did remember it. I gotta laugh. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to make sure that, I'm creative. And the biggest thing is transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And people hate it.
Yeah.
People hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so transparent
Mm.
from no makeup to no shoes half the time. So I was barefoot half the
Yeah,
season.
well, that's exactly. I think if you're comfortable, it makes for a much more authentic presentation of yourself, right? And means that, yeah, you are then going to meet people and they're going to hopefully then appreciate the real you and not just the person that you're putting out to the world that isn't actually who you are on the inside, which is really, really hard to get, actually. Like,
No, it's the hardest part because honestly, in my own head, I internalize and I think people are going to judge me for
yeah.
who I am because I have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's every day.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? I'm going to like say that to the world. Like, it is totally hard to daily deal with it
Mm-hmm.
and have that when people categorize ADHD with a problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's daily.
Mm-hmm.
This is It's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already thinking about like a squirrel jumping around and no, I'm just kidding.
I do that on a regular basis, so I'm not even mad about it. Yeah. But yeah, it's so true though. It does feel like you are having to convince others of your worth, even though that's not actually what we should
Constantly.
have to do at all. And it is such a shame that
And I think that it's
mm,
pretty cool that I got to be proud and loud and talk about it on, Vanderpump, but the backlash I think is turning around and being positive. I also think that, having ADHD and ADD is something that we all need to talk about and like realize that there's some things that are different and different brains, and people like you can really speak on that. And that's why I reach out to you.
yeah, no, thank
You're
you.
a 10 out of 10, kiddo.
Thanks, same to you. But I think you made a good point that we do really misunderstand how ADHD looks in women, especially because for those internalized presentations where we may be perceived as sensitive or, dramatic as well. That's something too that I do hear a lot. And then also the hyperactivity and impulsivity is something that it's probably a less common presentation, but when it is shown, it seems to rub people up the wrong way, as if you're annoying. And
they assume, right? Their assumptions. Yeah. Sorry.
No,
Yes.
no, absolutely fine. But yes, the presentation of like a combined type, but it seems like we're both quite hyperactive. And that does seem to attract a lot more criticism. It's something like 20,000 more criticisms by the age of 12 is what like ADHD kids receive as adults. That's what we've stored in our brain, like all those little moments. And I mean, that is just a stab in the dark, but it would be pretty close to that, I could only imagine. So that's pretty crazy, right? Imagine if that's...
That is not, I don't accept that. That's crazy. And I hope that I'm saying I accept that, but I'm just saying that's, sorry, my brain is processing this information.
That's okay. That's all right. I know it's just, yeah. So that's what I try and remind people is like, imagine having that, recording all those little moments that you've been told you're too loud, you're too annoying, you're too busy, you're like all those kind of things.
Can we do a gosh darn podcast on that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I want to go off on.
Okay. The thing that I normally do with guests, which is what would you rather, and I'll pick something off what kind of relevant to what we've just talked about. So,
yeah, and can you also do something that's like, what's the sound that a turtle makes, or like make an animal sound, and I'll do it. Okay, go. I love that you laughed because no one laughs at my brain.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's like, I do need to keep that bit. That's just to finish off. I was going to say, I normally do something with guests where I ask them, what would you rather out of two situations? So for you, it'll be relevant to Vanderpump or like filming. So would you rather be given a lot of information so you know exactly what situation you're entering into, you can prepare, or would you rather just not know, just walk right into a scene and just make it up on the spot? So be
neither. I'd rather
right. Okay. Why?
Because I'd rather just not think about it. Like you don't want to know what's happening. You also don't want to know what's not happening. So you just kind of want to be like natural, and you just kind of want to hear, and then you can run out if you want.
It sounds like you're picking the second. Like it did sound...
I'm picking the second.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are the type of person that I think you are and had shown on TV, you would just walk in just with your baseball cap backwards and just be like, right, what's happening? Yeah. All right.
100, because it would just be so not like everyone else would know what was going on, and they would just consistently like already have their glam squad and things like that, and I wasn't the person that was going to be in that situation because it just wasn't my MO.
Yeah.
So yes, you nailed it, the latter.
Yeah, also that makes for, again, much more interesting TV in my opinion. But now we are coming to the end. I am curious to know, Jo, what else do you have planned for the future? Anything that you can give us insights on yet?
Yeah, we've got a lot coming up, big kid. I don't know why I just called you big kid. Sorry, I used to call Team Money that. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. I consider myself that sometimes.
We've got well, I under contract cannot tell you.
Oh, okay. So it's a stay tuned moment, is it?
Correct.
That's exciting.
Next episode.
Woohoo! I'm excited. I hope that you'll share it with myself. We'll be in the know about this.
You know I will.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. So yes, people, stay tuned. Now, I know that you've said so many amazing things. Is there one key takeaway that you'd love for the listeners to have about neurodivergence, about showing up authentically? What do you feel is like one of the most important things that they can take away from this? I know it's very broad, isn't it? Sorry.
Okay. I think I have some insight to this. What was the question? I'm kidding.
I know it's hard to narrow it down to one thing, but if you were to say, this is the one thing that I would have loved to have known, have learned as I was really, really young.
Be refreshing, be yourself. Don't let people tell you to shut the up. Remind yourself that you have the biggest heart. You really embrace life to the fullest, but also you're allowed to be depressed and you're allowed to be depleted, and also love yourself, because I need to start doing that more on my end. We're refreshing.
Yes.
And I also think that it's ironic because I think a lot of this world needs to get some gosh darn space for our energy, because I don't know how to explain it, but I just appreciate everybody, and then I also want to hate everybody.
Yeah, isn't that a
So
conundrum?
yes, it's ironic.
Yes, but I can understand. Like you've been given.
We're authentic. See, that's right. Authentic.
Yeah.
That's why I want to talk to you about the RSD or the
Yeah, we
yes,
definitely
yes.
need to delve into it deeper. I have done an episode on it for anyone listening, so you can tune into one of my earlier episodes if you want to have a bit of a perspective into it. But I think to talk to you about
I listened to it and I loved it.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much, Jo. So again, I really appreciate you coming on, Jo. Please plug your socials. Where can people find you? How can they get in touch?
I'm super private, but at the end of the day, it's just Jo, my gosh, JOMYGOSH on Instagram. I don't do anything else. It's ugh.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. And look, I think for what it's worth, we all probably need to strip back a little bit on social media and to,
Oh my God,
it's
yes.
like it's our, it's such a something that can connect us, but it can also be such a disconnecting thing. So I can totally understand why you've made that choice.
Oh my gosh, you just nailed it. Congrats on telling the public that. Sorry, I was like, squirrel.
That's fine. No worries. We can do a lot with it, but the platform can obviously, in your case, has not always been too kind. But I think that you're so brave for coming on here and sharing your story. And even though you have received backlash and you have received not the most positive support. However, I do think that there's lots of people who are out there who are listening, and you being vulnerable, I think, gives them an insight into who the real Jo is, and maybe has a new appreciation, or at least has hopefully challenged their thoughts on things.
Yeah, like the irony is that if I had masked my ADHD, it would have been me presented as like a neurotypical version of myself. I would have actually been playing a character, but I wasn't. So what you saw was the real me, and I just really appreciate you bringing me on here. And I will sign off. I'm so sorry I talked so much, and I love you. And can we please do this again?
Yes, let's do that. Let's do a follow-up. Absolutely. I hope that everyone listening is keen for another. Please drop us question ideas, what you'd like to know about Jo more, because this was only a small introduction. She said she's been keen to have a follow-up as well on delving into other things like
I might.
Exactly. And I do too. I
start interviewing my other fellow Jo,
Joanna.
Yeah,
the
Johanna.
JoJo 2.0. Hey, it rhymes. We'll have to call it that. We'll actually have to call the episode that.
I'm so okay with that.
All right, cool. I'm happy. All right, well, take care, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks so much, Jo, for joining me at such a late time over there. Again, appreciate you and all that you do. Bye-bye.